Hello and welcome to another SonicLAB. Today we're looking at a pair of headphones and they are the brand new Sennheiser HD490 Pro. These come in two flavours, the Pro and the Plus. We've got the Plus here. Plus gives you things like a fancy case and a few more bits and pieces, longer cable. But essentially, this is Sennheiser's brand new studio grade, well, mastering grade headphone. Now, there's been quite a lot of competition in the kind of upper end of headphone world since I was last interested. I've been mostly focused on monitors. In fact, if we look here, the last headphones I bought were these old school Sony closeback when I was doing a lot of live sound, and these are the MDR-V6. Used to buy them when we went to LA for early NAMMs. They were much more affordable back in those days. But these are a very different breed. These new Sennheisers are, well, they're aiming to be much more kind of like reference level, and you can spend a ton of money on that sort of thing. I mean, you know, the current top of the range stuff go into the thousands, and it sort of crosses over a little bit between studio and audiophile. So these are very much definitely aimed at the studio. So the Pro Plus gets you, as well as the headphones, you get this rather tasty case. Case comes with, there's a cable in here. There's also, interestingly, another set of, if I hold them out there, you'll be able to see them. They're kind of different set of ear pads, because there's two sorts. These are sort of like velvety, and then the ones that I've got set on it, if I flip over, these are more cloth-based. Now, these headphones are open back headphones. They're marked with left and right, very lightweight. If I put them on, I mean, to coin a phrase, it's rather a cliche perhaps, you can hardly tell you're wearing them. There's a very little sort of pull, and there's a very soft touch. Have I got them the right way around? Yes, I do. We can also, with these, we can plug the cable in either side. There's a little, it's like a kind of XLR that goes in either left or right. We can unplug this and plug it into either side, whichever suits. And the idea with these headphones is to give you a very comfortable wear. The plan really being to allow you to wear them for long periods. I mean, as we know, not everybody has, you know, a beautiful, massive studio setup. So headphones are becoming much more important when it comes to mastering. And particularly when we've got all of these individual systems which allow us to kind of emulate spaces that we can hear as well. In fact, there is a software package that comes with these, a bit more of that later, which allows us to sort of feel like we're in the room. But for that, we need high quality headphones. So here's what we have. Like I said, there is going to be quite a lot of talking in this because I can only really describe how they sound. And just to show you what our setup is, we've got Apple Music here, which is lossless. Then we're going into a Babyface RME Pro, Babyface Pro FS, which is very high quality. We have reviewed this, and we all felt that it sounded absolutely fantastic. So that's why we're using it. And that's going into the Little Labs monitor, which it's been around a little while, and this is a really high-end sort of studio reference for mixing and mastering headphone amplifier, which has kind of, you can swap left and right, you can mono, you can check the phase, and the volume is on a kind of indented potentiometer, so we get just a really high level of control. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug these in. One thing that the Plus package does is gives you a sort of longer cable. You get a longer cable, you get a nice case, you get a spare headphone pad at the top here in case you have particularly dirty hair. Then you might want to change it and wash it out. You know, these are sort of feel like luxury to me. So I'm just going to plug this in here. I'm going to plug this into the Little Labs. So what I've also got here is a pair of what was Sennheiser, these were considered to be decent reference level headphones. These are the HD600s. So I'm going to listen to, let me see, if I listen to this, this is one that I tend to listen to is K.D. Lang, Ingenue, classic album, really beautifully recorded. I think they won Grammys for this, and I know it's been a long time since it was recorded, but it's hard to find something that has this level of dynamic range and just the sizzle and the sparkle of the acoustic instruments as well as her voice. So I'll listen to this. Obviously you can't hear this because we get done for copyright, but this is Wash Me Clean. Very nice stereo imaging, silky top end, and quite a reasonable, not overpowering low end. Very nice. So now I'm going to go over to these. I realise this is, you're going to have to take my word for it. Now I'm going to go over to the 490s, which, remember, is a sort of much more modern headphone and has been updated to kind of, I guess, give you a bit more of a flatter sound. Well, we'll see. Oh, wow, okay. Very much more conscious of the low end. It almost feels like there's a sub in the room, which is quite curious. I'm aware of the sort of mass of the bass, much more than I was with these. And perhaps a bit more presence and sparkle in the upper mids to top end. Not overpowering. This track has got some acoustic slide guitar. I think it must be a Nashville Steel. And there's quite a lot of corner to it. It can be a bit overpowering. Yeah, what I'm hearing there is probably, it seems like around 3 to 4K, there's a bit of a kind of corner, which isn't unpleasant, and this track is quite hot in that area. So anything that, if I listen to them on, let's listen to the Sonys now. This will be a real eye-opener. If I put these on the stand, listen to the old Sonys. Right, it's night and day, night and day. Right, so what's happening here is very little. The stereo separation is almost non-existent. I mean, these headphones are probably quite old and might be a bit knackered, but there's not much stereo. You're not aware of the width of the track so much. Bass end is quite nice, and a much more pronounced sort of peak in the upper mids that I was talking about, which for live work is fantastic because it means it's going to cut through all the background noise, even though these are closed back. I remember, you know, spending time like cramming it on my head and listening to snare drums. Let's take that off. So quite an interesting experience there. Let's try another track, which I really do know quite well. Let me see if I can find it. That is, yeah, this is Suntoucher by Groove Armada, which has beautiful bottom end and a very kind of dry and in-your-face vocal. So, again, very conscious of the stereo imaging on this. Almost feels when the top end is muted on these. These are the HD 600s, the sort of old school version. Oh, such a fantastic bass drum and bass drop on that. Right, let's listen to on these and see what these sound like. Oh my. Right, bottom end is, again, it feels like night and day. It's just really, I can feel it in here, which I shouldn't be able to because it's only a pair of headphones, but there's a sort of psychoacoustic effect, I suppose, somehow. Top end sounds really smooth, and the transient of that snare drum is really hitting harder than on these. Yeah, I'm really liking that, actually. I mean, let's just see what that sounds like on these, just for a night and day. Yeah. Bottom end's really nice on those, but the mid detail and the smoothness is really grim. It just sort of feels like there's a sort of presence peak in these. So these HD 490s are sounding very smooth. And when you compare, I mean, when these came out, these were probably more expensive than these are, but you can go up to spending thousands on headphones. I did try this against a pair of more expensive headphones. I won't name the brand at this point. And they held their own, you know. I found them, I think if you saw my review of the IK Multimedia, the iLouds 6s, the listening experience, while not as clinical as sort of dedicated studio monitors, was very musically pleasing, and I enjoyed listening to it on them. And very much I'm getting the same sort of vibe on these. It's vibey, but it's all there as well. So it's not, I don't think it's flattering, but it's nice to listen to. It's a very musical output. And I could see wearing them for long periods of time would not be terribly fatiguing, I think. And maybe you might, you know, with some of the top end, maybe a tiny bit. I think there's also a difference between whether we have the cloth headphone surrounds or the velveteen ones. In fact, Andy spoke to one of the chaps, the product specialist there, and they explained the difference between those, because just by changing those, we get a slight difference in sound as well, which seems like a weird thing to do, but I guess, you know, aside from that, what else can you do with a pair of headphones to change the tonality, even subtle how it is?
So, turning to Gunnar, thank you for joining us this morning. So what's your role in the company and in the development of this headphone?
I work as a product manager for Sennheiser, and I'm responsible for the portfolio of our professional headphones and in-ears, which also makes the HD490 Pro one of the products and projects I'm working with. So starting from all the market research, interviewing customers and get all the requirements that we need to get done, sort them out, and then actually follow with the whole development project and all the involved people through and actually come up with the product that we did. We also have like decades and decades of experience in developing headphones. And we've seen that there's quite some time since Sennheiser came up with the last professional headphone that we introduced newly to the market. So we said, okay, let's start all over again, take the experience that we have in developing headphones and come up with the new best inline professional headphones for recording in the studio purpose.
Because there was a previous model of HD490, wasn't there?
Yes, long time ago. There was another model with the same name, but those are two different products and they don't have anything in common besides the standard of audio that we as Sennheiser, of course, put.
So is this regarded as a flagship product then, within the product line?
Yes. Of course it is. And I hope that the product itself also stands up to that with the promise that we are making to the customers.
So what was the design brief that you entered into this process? What were you aiming to do?
When we asked the customer, hey, what do you expect from a best inline professional headphone? There were three things that were very important to our customers, and those are audio, comfort, and reliability. And those are really the three main aspects that we put as requirements for this product.
And looking at the audio aspect of that, was the fundamental design initiative to try and have a flat response, a completely neutral headphone?
This is actually a very interesting part of the whole product because when you take a look at the HD600 and 650, which are products that are commonly used among the professional users, people really love the audio response of those products. But when you ask them, hey, what do you expect from a product? They say, I want a really neutral, flat acoustic response. But in difference to the HD600 and 650, they are not, let's say, the most neutral as it can get. So it's one thing that they say they want, and it's another thing that they go for. And with the HD490 Pro, we really try to hit that spot. So we designed a product that has the character of the acoustic designed in it, and the ear pads change the acoustics of the product just a little. So you can change the acoustics with exchanging the ear pads.
I was going to come on to that, yes, because that's fundamentally that's the most interesting thing that strikes you when you open the box. There's two sets of ear pads.
Yes.
And not a great deal of information about what the differences are. So if you could explain the thinking behind that, what's the idea?
This is a headphone designed for the professionals. And professionals always ask for accurate, neutral, flat acoustics in terms of what they want from their headphones. And of course, you can listen into the details, but when you work for many hours, which many professionals do, the sound can get a little bit harsh, you can get ear fatigue a little bit, and that's also disturbing when you want to work for long sessions. And this is why we also came up with a different, slightly different acoustical setup to also give you the option to work for longer hours without having any of this ear fatigue. Also, hearing is very individual and personal, and there are personal differences. So we decided to name those two different ear pads producing and mixing. So the producing ear pads should give you really more perspective on what you're doing. So it's really good to judge individual sounds when you're producing, for example. And the mixing earpads are more flat, more accurate, and they give you the opportunity to judge the details in the whole mix, to do the positioning of instruments, for example. And I think that they have a really good fit into the different detail aspects that you need to do when working professionally.
So I guess we should start with establishing which ones are which. Which is the, if we say that a velour one and a fabric one.
The thing that is important for us is that it's not about the material. It's not about what you prefer. Of course you can, but it's about changing the acoustics. And this is why we decided to go for producing for the velour earpads and mixing for the fabric earpads.
Excellent. So the fabric earpads are the mixing earpads.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's the more accurate ones.
Yes, so the more flat one. Both are very accurate, but they are more flat, more neutral, and the velour ones, the producing ones, a little bit more warmth in the whole thing.
So can I ask, at what point in the development cycle did you decide to go down the route of offering two sets of earpads? Was it quite late on and you thought, well, hang on, we've got this headphone and it's absolutely fantastic, but we've been listening to it for many, many hours and our ears are getting tired, so maybe we should offer something else? What was the thinking behind it? When was it introduced to that process?
We really considered the opinion of the people that we took our early prototypes to, and we had different ways to go. And because audio was one of our focus topics for this project, we really discovered very early on that one thing that they wanted and that they said they want, and one thing that most of the people were going to, are actually two things that are each of them are really valid in itself. And this is why we decided to go with both ways early on. So having both kind of earpads was quite part of the story from the beginning. And then from there on, it was an easy way to go down to say, okay, we have a product that has a character, and we can change this character just slightly enough to really offer the benefits to the different user groups that we want to target.
Okay, because from a user's perspective, it's quite a surprising move. The first thing it says is earpads make quite a difference, which many people won't realise because they've never had the opportunity to change those earpads. So it does actually make quite a difference to the acoustics, the structure and the fabric and the material and the size of the earpads, yes?
Yes. So for us, it's very important that besides audio and the comfort, also the reliability is something that we really focus on. And we've seen that many people do not really care about maintaining or cleaning their product very much. And we also hope that we can put this into the heads of the people, that this also is important, because we don't want to provide high quality in the first place when we sell the product, but also to provide the quality over years to come. And for this, it is important to understand that earpads make a difference. And when you want to perceive the high quality of the product, you also have to take care about the condition of your product. And this is why we also decided to go on with our quality statement. So first time ever, the earpads are washable with this headphone.
Oh, that's an interesting move. So how do you wash them?
Just in a washing machine. So take them off, put them in the washing machine, air dry them, and put them back on, and they should be fine again.
Excellent. Any particular washing liquid that sounds better than others?
We did quite some testing on that, I can tell you. But so far, as long as you don't do it with too much heat, should be fine.
Okay. So if we have a quick look at I've got a camera here so we can see what's going on. So at the moment I've got the fabric pads on them. Mm-hmm. And if I can just put those in front of the camera, this is the velour pads. So what's the difference in the way they're manufactured? Are they both got the same underlying kind of foam underneath, or are they completely different?
Let me start differently. So in the heart of the acoustics, of course, there's the driver. And then there's the system you put the driver in. And the system really defines what you're getting out of the driver and how you define the details of what you're getting. And there, of course, it's not only the headphone itself and the ear cup and everything that's built around it, but also the ear pads and the close-up to your head and to your skin. And we try to make the differences between different people as small as possible so that everyone really perceives the same kind of quality. And so the difference that the ear pads make are really come from the surface that we have on the ear pads and a little bit in the softness, so that the ear pad really attaches to your skin, which of course should feel nice, but also let the air ventilate in the way that we designed it in terms of the acoustics.
And when it comes to the acoustic tests, how do you measure? What system do you use?
We're measuring on a Brüel heads. And first time ever, we will also share the testing and the frequency response curve that we did with those testings. So we've seen that in the past, customers really asked for these frequency response curves. And we were always a little bit shy of really communicating them because, as you know, they really are different in regards to the measurement equipment that you're using. So now we decided for the first time to communicate them together also with the test equipment that we're using.
So are you aiming for a completely flat response, or are you fitting the acoustic response to the Harman curve?
I think that's the point with the two ear pads that we're using. We aimed for overall frequency response curve that allows you really to hear the details in the mix, to get the great soundstage that you can experience with open back headphones, and then really twist the details with the different ear pads. So it's rather a no, yes or no, but it's more giving the user the opportunity to choose what they really want to go for.
But in terms of design principle, are you aiming at a completely independently flat response, or are you aiming at a trajectory that follows the Harman curve? Because it's a fairly relatively new innovation or introduction into the headphone world, the idea of a Harman curve. And I know that there's some discussion of whether it's valid or not. So I was just wondering if that came into your calculations. Are you aiming with that in mind, or just that's an irrelevance?
No, that's not irrelevant at all. It has been part of the journey that we've been through in part of the acoustic design. But we think that the best approach that we did is take that also as part of the overall thing that we are judging, and not going with a theory and just following a theory. So yes, we considered that, and it was part of the overall design, but it was not the only principle that we followed.
Okay. And you're saying you've had some customer feedback on these already. So what are the main sort of criteria that came out of those discussions? What did you change as a result of that feedback?
First of all, I was surprised how many people did not know about the difference that earpads make. That was a very big surprise for me personally. And we've seen that there are quite some preferences for both type of earpads. So they both have a strong fan base. Most of the people really like the accuracy of the overall product, also with the soundstage and the wideness that the product gives you, together with the details and also the warmer end of the spectrum with the producing earpads. One thing that was very nice for me personally as well is that everyone so far really liked the comfort of the product. Which is, I think, a really big success for us.
I was a bit trepidatious to change ear pads because that can be a bit fiddly on some. And it's very easy. I've got to say, you've done a great job with the ease of swapping them out. So, yeah, good job there.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge to do that because there are different mechanics in the market, and it's always not really satisfying for the customers. So we try to come up with a different approach that really just clicks on and detaches easily. And also it's important that you cannot destroy the product while exchanging them. So I hope it's satisfying for everyone.
Okay, that's enough of my subjectivity, my opinions. We have a friend here who has a pair of microphones in his ears, and Andy made this so that we could measure the difference between the pads. Obviously, changing the pads on these and then putting them on and off would be quite long-winded, so it'd be quite hard to do an A-B without two sets. So he's done some measurements which will give you a much clearer idea of what changes when you swap pads. There's also some interesting stuff if you're on our Patreon, which will go into a bit more detail about what they are like compared to other headphones in terms of frequency plots and how he made the head, because it's quite an interesting process.
So the headphones on the dummy head are fed by the headphone output of my Babyface Pro FS. That is getting a test signal from REW, which is an acoustics measurements piece of software. It's a really good piece of software, actually. And you can see the plots there I've done already. And the outputs of the microphone capsules inside the dummy head are going into the microphone inputs of the RME. And the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that we have a consistent output from the headphones, so we're all measuring the same volume. So I'm going to check the levels. It's going to send a test signal in. And we've got 89 dB, which is pretty close. I'm trying to aim at 90 dB for everything. So I'm just going to go to total mix, raise the level just a tiny bit, check levels again. So the level is 90 dB, that's perfect. So we're going to start the test. So that gave us a sweep from 10 hertz to 22 kilohertz. And so that's the result we've got from the fabric pad. Now, I did a test with the velour pad earlier, and that's what I got with the velour pad. And there's another one with the velour pad. You can see they're very consistent. And there's quite a change between the fabric and the velour. I was going to show the Gunnar headphone response, which I've done myself. So this is the velour trace I've got, and this is the fabric trace, and there's a slight difference. It looks like the velour has got slightly more bottom end. Does that go along with your findings?
Yes, absolutely.
And they do a bit of a swap on the top end.
Not so much, I would say. It's really rather about the lower end of the frequency curve. But I would recommend not to put too much interpretation into the curves. This
Absolutely.
is also the reason why we really hesitated to publish them in the past, because we somehow fear a little bit that people will take them as the only reference and really want the people to listen into the product and then make their judgment on their own, and then rather have them as a second argument and not in the first place.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the plots, because when you look online, there are so many different ways to present the same information.
Yes.
And every graph is presented in a different way. The scaling's different. The way that they've used the measuring equipment is different, which is why I'm saying very strongly that the stuff I've done is just a comparative test. It's not a reference. It's not any kind of indication of what the frequency response actually is. It's a comparative test, so you can just see the differences between models. But it just show us that there's a slight lift in the bottom end between the different pads.
Yeah, that's also the same thing that our graphs show, and it's the thing that we wanted to go for, because this really makes a difference, or a slight difference, in terms of the ear fatigueness that you experience, and I'm sure you're also able to hear that when you are exchanging the ear pads.
And if we go back to the HT600, it's a model I'm personally familiar with. I did a quick plot of that. Let's have a look. So if I go back to that one. So the green trace there is the HT600. So it looks like the 490 Pros have got significantly more bottom end. So is that something you'd agree with?
I would not 100% agree to that, even though on the frequency chart it looks like that. I would say that the HD600 is a headphone that was designed for audiophiles, and also audiophiles like to listen into the details, and HD600 is also a product that is vastly used among the professionals. So it also has a really good point in working with the details of the mix. But we've seen that there are also some points where you can like improve when you want to judge the details on the lower end of the frequency spectrum in a different perspective. And I think that with the mixing earpads, so the fabric ones, you have somehow a similar perspective, even though it looks different on the chart that you just showed.
Sure. And as I say, it's very hard to judge from charts. But on the quick listening test we did, I mean, certainly the HD600 is not renowned for having masses of bass extension. And the 490 did have more weight to the bottom end that we could discern, and it was enjoyable, not overwhelming. It seemed to give us a lot more information at the lower end. So what about the top end? Again, compared with the 600, for example, or the 650s, what's your take on the differences at the top end? What
I really like about the HD490 Pro on the top end is that I can really hear the details of different instruments placed next to each other. So for me, it was very easy to identify what I've done and what I want, or if the work that I'm doing is really coming up to what my idea of it was. And this is way more easy with the HD490 Pros than it was with different headphones.
Yeah, I think I'd go along with that from the listening I've had. I think I pretty much exhausted all the things that I wanted to focus on. What about the things that you want to focus on? What have I not asked you that you think, I want to talk about that, or why didn't he ask me that?
Yeah, I can just repeat. I think spec sheets and the frequency response curves are nice things to have on hand, but I would really invite people to listen to the product, try it out, and get yourself a picture. Maybe I can add on to that a little bit, because one of our design challenges was to build a product that is very lightweight on one hand, because that's very important for the comfort. Also, we wanted a product that appears small, because we have seen that with other headphones, they often are really big on the head, and this is not really nice for some people. And also we needed a very open architecture in order to achieve our acoustic goals. So to match all of these three goals into one headphone was not very easy. And this took us quite some time to come up with the good solution that we have on hand.
So the Sennheiser HD490 Pro are priced at around £349 UK pounds. That's for the base model without the fancy case. If you want the fancy case, the extra pad bit and the longer cable, that will be £419. So they're not the cheapest things in the world if you're used to spending maybe less on a pair of headphones. But it has to be said, if you're serious about monitoring and you want to be able to kind of make qualitative decisions, they're actually quite revealing. I mean, I found it a very interesting process since my last real reference point were these, which are many, many years old. These are completely, like I say, night and day. I'm very much feeling like if you need to get a lot of detail, you don't have the opportunity for loudspeakers in a space, or you just like to mix things up, I mean, it's a pretty good investment, particularly if you're doing mission-critical mixing and stuff that you really need to hear. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.